Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Listography. Today we're going to be talking about Kiss. If you saw my 20 favorite classic rock guitarist videos, I mentioned in that video that Kiss is a band that I have very conflicted feelings about. On one hand, I disagree with a lot of what the band stands for. I think Paul Stanley and Gene Simmons both come across as hypocritical assholes. I also don't think they've made very much in the way of good music for the last 25 years or so. But on the other hand, they were the first band that I ever loved as a kid. They are largely responsible for me getting into music and my love of music and rock and roll. So you'll see me wrestle with all of these different ideas as we count down all 20 Kiss studio albums from the worst to the best. Alright, let's get it started at number 20 with the album Sonic Boom. There are good riffs and melodies on this record, and it rocks harder than Psycho Circus, I'll give it that. But the guitar playing is about the only part of this record that's any good. The songwriting is incredibly corny. Not that Kiss have ever been brilliant poets or wordsmiths, but this style of writing just doesn't work. The times have changed, they've gotten older. Both facts that work against this record. It's hard for me to listen to without rolling my eyes or cringing. It's easy to take sides with the Kiss haters when you listen to this. Singing a lot of these songs in our current climate, just not a good look. One spot up from there, at number 19, the album Monster. Same criticisms here as on Sonic Boom. A cool guitar riff doesn't equal a good song, and the songs on this record are just bad. It really doesn't have anything to do with Tommy Thayer or Eric Singer, more to do with the writing, just really not good songs. At number 18, I have the album Revenge. Just like every hair band in the early 90s, Kiss was a little bit directionless. The saving grace of that particular brand of rock and roll is that it was fun. But Kiss doesn't seem to be having much fun here. The death of Eric Carr less than a year earlier looms over this record, and the tough guys in leather look just doesn't play after seeing all the goofy outfits they wore in the 80s. At number 17, I have Asylum, which is the first record with Bruce Kulick. Considering that this record was in my collection for the majority of my childhood, I played it very little, which is strange considering how much I listened to their other albums, and that I'm a pretty big fan of Bruce Kulick's playing. There's just not a lot here that's very good outside of Tears Are Falling. At number 16, I have Hot in the Shade. This record sounds really thin to me, not a fan of the production at all, which was handled by Paul and Gene. But Hide Your Heart is a fantastic song, both the Kiss version and Ace's solo version, and Forever is one of the better power ballads of the 80s. At number 15, I have the album Animalize. Animalize is only marginally better than Hot in the Shade and Asylum are. I give it the edge because I think the mix sounds pretty good for an 80s rock record. Eric Carr's drums in particular sound tight and aggressive. Also, the riff to I've Had Enough, which opens the album, is pretty awesome. At number 14, I go with Psycho Circus. This record is every bit as corny as Sonic Boom and Monster are, but there's a certain silliness to this record and a sense of fun that makes it come across a little better. Production-wise, it's a little closer to their 70s heyday than either Sonic Boom or Monster are, which actually sound a little more like their 80s records, despite the presence of the makeup. The Into the Void riff is undeniably great as well. At number 13, I'm going with the album Lick It Up, the first record that they did without makeup. This record isn't all that different from Creatures of the Night. Vinny's playing is the main draw of the record. It has some good songs like All Hell's Breakin' Loose and A Million to One, but also some gross ones like Fits Like a Glove. At number 12, I have the album Carnival of Souls. This was the grunge record. The jeans and t-shirts vibe works better than the leather-clad Revenge look. So do the no-nonsense hard rock riffs, songs like Hate, Rain, Childhood's End, and Jungle. Seduction of the Innocent is one of my favorite Kiss songs ever, actually. Obviously, people will criticize this record and say it's just them trying to keep up with the times and remain relevant, which may be true, but I think they do a better job of it here than they had most of the previous decade. It would have been interesting to see what would have happened if the original lineup reunion never took place. At number 11, I have Unmasked. A lot of people really don't like to hear Kiss doing anything other than straight ahead hard rock, but to me they made some of their most interesting and best records when they strayed from that blueprint. A little bit of a spoiler, I love Dynasty and The Elder, and there's a lot of really different and interesting stuff on their 78 solo albums that I like. Unmasked is equally as interesting as those records, just maybe not equally as good as some of those other records I mentioned. But while there are certainly some duds, this album also has its share of pretty cool tunes. Tomorrow is a fantastic power pop song, and Ace's contributions to the album Torpedo Girl, Two Sides of the Coin, and Talk to Me are especially great. At number 10, I have Creatures of the Night. Fans of the band's heavier side really seem to love this record, and with good reason. There are some really good hard rockin' tunes on this record. The title track and I Love It Loud are great, as are War Machine and I Still Love You. It's certainly more streamlined and focused than some of their previous efforts, but while this record may be more immediately impactful, it just doesn't keep me coming back to it the way some of those weirder albums that preceded it do. So this next pick at number 9 is a bit of a guilty pleasure for me. I'm going with Crazy Nights. People generally don't like this record, but as far as their 80s no makeup albums go, I think it's pretty easily their best. And I mean, like, by a huge margin. They sound like they're having a lot of fun on this record, and the songs are actually pretty catchy and put more of an emphasis on singable choruses rather than just having heavy guitar riffs. Eric Carr and Bruce Kulick are both playing their butts off on this record, just killing it. This is the only record from this period that I can still put on and really enjoy. I'll even go a step further and say this is probably one of my top 5 hair metal albums of all time, right up there with Long Cold Winter and a few others. At number 8, I'm going with Destroyer. There are some great songs on this record, Detroit Rock City, obviously. I also think Beth is a really well-written pop song with an unbelievably great vocal performance from Peter Criss. Other songs, though, like King of the Nighttime World and Shout It Out Loud, are very overrated. I'm actually not much of a fan of the way this record sounds, either. Bob Ezrin took an amazing rock and roll band and turned them into cartoon characters on this record. Sure, it gave them hits and it sold a ton, but Kiss would never again return to being the same kind of kick-ass rock band that they once were. All of their best records from this point on found other ways of being great rather than just playing straight ahead rock. At number 7, I have the album Love Gun. The songwriting on both Love Gun and Rock and Roll Over is much better than on Destroyer. The production is still a little overblown, but songs like I Stole Your Love, Shock Me, and Plaster Caster are all pretty great rock songs, the better versions of which just happen to be on Kiss Alive 2. At number 6, I have Rock and Roll Over. Perhaps sensing that they had gone too far in a theatrical direction with Destroyer, Rock and Roll Over finds them toning down the heavy-handed production of its predecessor. Still, it's clear that there's now a much larger budget than there once was, and the rough rock and roll edges of their first 3 albums now have a glossy sheen to them. I Want You, Calling Dr. Love, Mr. Speed, and Hard Luck Woman are my favorites from this record. At number 5, I have music from The Elder. For a long time, this record was the butt of jokes. The band members themselves have even denounced it at various points as being misguided and ill-conceived, but that has more to do with the band's mythology and history, though, than the actual music itself. Just because the record wasn't a commercial success, and because it veered even further away from the band's hard rock roots, the band turned its back on it. It may be weird, misguided, and ill-conceived, but it's great, and the band should have stood up for it. Instead, they let their fans and their critics determine their artistic direction. Many look at Creatures of the Night as a return to form, but in another light, you could easily see it as a cowardly retreat. And that's part of what's been my frustration with Kiss in general. They're too populist for their own good. Who knows what other weirdness they could have come out with had they continued down this strange, proggy path. If you don't know this record, I'd urge you to give it a listen and try your hardest to pretend that it's not Kiss and judge it on its own merits. At number 4, I have Hotter Than Hell. The first 3 Kiss albums are amazing rock and roll records. If the band had broken up after Alive, they almost certainly would have won over critics upon reevaluation by now. They're as raw and as powerful as any rock record you'll find. It's unfortunate that Hotter Than Hell was recorded so poorly. It sounds like a bad demo at best, but that's also part of its appeal in a way too. Parasite, Going Blind, Got to Choose, and Watching You are all just incredible tunes. At number 3, I'm going with the self-titled debut record. Kiss in Time and Love Theme from Kiss aside, this is one of the greatest rock and roll debuts of all time. It's raw and loose, but catchy and powerful at the same time. It's hard to imagine that they didn't have immediate success with these songs and the outrageous cover image. Deuce, Nothing to Lose, Firehouse, Cold Gin, Strutter, Black Diamond, Let Me Know, 100,000 Years. I mean, come on. I get it if you don't like Kiss based on the majority of their output, but if all you knew or all that existed were the first 3 records, they'd be pretty undeniable. At number 2, I have Dynasty, the one record to come after Alive that stacks up to the first 3 in my opinion. Its greatness comes from a totally different place than those original albums though. It's polished and flashy, the songs are really good, and the production is complimentary. The rock songs rock, the pop songs pop, the moody songs have great feel. It's known as their disco album, although only a few songs have disco elements. It's hard to put a finger on exactly what makes this album so much better than, say, Love Gun. It's every bit as much of a studio creation as the few records that came before it. I guess it's just the songs. Sure Knows Something and Hard Times and Dirty Livin' and Save Your Love and 2000 Man, which is a Stones cover, just feel a lot more real than something like Love Gun. It turned them back from superheroes or cartoon characters into musicians in a way, albeit ones with waning popularity. The production is so good, the bass playing is top-notch on this record, all of the vocal performances are great. Really love Dynasty. And at number 1, I'm going with their third record, Dressed to Kill. It is the record with Rock and Roll All Night, but you could honestly wipe that track from the end of the record and I wouldn't miss it a bit. The rest of this record just kills. Great riffs, great solos, catchy melodies. It sounds a lot better than Hotter Than Hell, but it still has the rawness and energy to it. If you don't get Kiss or don't understand why anyone would like them, give this record a listen, play it loud. If you still don't get it, that's fine, so be it. Dressed to Kill is just a killer 70s rock record. Kind of straddles the line between sort of cheap trick power pop and more hard rock like Zeppelin. I think it's just great, and that's why it's my favorite Kiss record. Thanks for watching, guys. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you liked the video. Give it a like. Make sure you hit the bell so that you're notified when other videos are available. And of course, comment below. Tell me what your thoughts on Kiss are. Do you like them? Do you hate them? Which records are your favorites? And let me know what other artists you'd like to see me cover on the channel. Thanks for watching.